Welcome everyone to a very special Christmas episode at the Cabin of Horrors. How's everyone doing? So sorry that the episodes have been sporadic. I know it's been a while and I've hardly been dropping episodes. I totally get it, but if you're listening to this and you've come back, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast still. Like seriously, really appreciate it. I promise you in the new year there's going to be some more consistency and a lot of cool new stuff coming from the cabin. If you haven't joined our community Discord yet, the link is in the show notes of this episode. Click on it and come join our community Discord server. That's where you're going to have all of the latest updates on the cabin. You're going to have links that you can go to for horror movie watch parties on Kick and on Twitch. And there's just so much of a horror community going on in the Discord. So come on by if you haven't already. Stop in, say hi, and enjoy in everything that is the horror genre. This episode is totally Christmas themed. This has been voted on by everyone in the Discord. I put up a poll, and what were the options I did? Hold on, I gotta check what the options I did were, because I can't remember all of them. Where is it? There it is. So we put up 6 options for people to vote from. Why Jason Voorhees is misunderstood, that was the first one. And I'm kind of pissed that nobody voted for that podcast episode. Is there nobody curious as to why Jason Voorhees is misunderstood? Like, I'm telling you right now, Jason Voorhees is not your typical slasher killer. He's really not. He's not a Michael Myers, and he's not a Freddy Krueger. He's not a Leatherface. He's his own entity because he's just a dude trying to live his own life after his mother's death. Think about it. And I want to do, you know what? I think I might just still do an episode all on that sometime in the new year, because I have so much for every movie to like prove that he's just some dude that's misunderstood, that I think everyone will get a real kick out of it. Obviously, it's going to be satire, right? It's not going to be legit, but I think everyone will get a really big kick out of it and it'll be super funny. So probably do that sometime in the new year. Also on the poll, which came in 3rd place, was Slumber Party Massacre. And then 2nd place came Hellraiser. And then nobody voted for 90s or 80s movies. So you guys made that very clear. But the winner was the Christmas themed episode. That was the pick that got the most votes. So we're going to do a Christmas themed episode, which obviously makes fucking sense considering, well, Christmas is like a few days away. As of my recording this, I'm recording this on the 20th, so it's 5 days away. 5 more days until Christmas time. Which is absolutely fucking wild, because I could have sworn it was December 1st like 2 days ago. I don't know about you guys, but this month has just like flown. This month has just gotten way out of hand. But anyways, we're going to head into a double feature and talk about 2 of my favorite horror Christmas movies. And these are also 2 movies that have recently been inducted into the Cabin of Horrors Hall of Fame. In the Discord server, we've got a Hall of Fame channel where the community can nominate movies that they feel are almost pinnacles of the Cabin of Horrors for our 24/7 watch parties. And 2 of those movies that were nominated and voted to be in the Hall of Fame were Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2 and Anna and the Apocalypse. 2 amazing Christmas horror movies, and we're going to be diving deep and we're going to be talking about both of them on this episode. We're going to start off with Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2. It's a 1987 American crime slasher film, quote unquote, which was edited and co-written with Joseph H. Early and was directed by Lee Harry. You may not have heard of Lee Harry before, and that's because this movie was his claim to fame. He's only known for doing 2 movies, which is this one, Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2, and also a movie called Street Soldiers, which was released in 1991 and was an American revenge martial arts film. So a complete detraction from what Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2 is, but those are the only 2 that he's known for. And the film also stars Eric Freeman as Ricky Chapman, which of course any lover of this movie knows who Ricky is, and of course is the person that is in the infamous meme that you'll see online, the Garbage Day meme, which is probably where a lot of people found Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2, was when that Garbage Day meme went viral, I guarantee it. We also have Elizabeth Caton playing as Jennifer Statson, who was a model for the Bonnie K agency in New York City in the early 1980s. And this was really her claim to fame as well, but she has played in another horror movie. She actually starred as Robin in Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood, and was also in Vice Academy Parts 3, 4, 5, and 6 as Candy. So, not someone who's really shot to stardom in any way, shape, or form, but is somebody who's been in a couple of horror movies that you may know. Lillian Chauvin was the lady who played Mother Superior in both the first Silent Night, Deadly Night film and the sequel here, Part 2. And she was actually a very famous actress, and it's surprising that they were able to get someone of her caliber onto this kind of movie. She was actually nominated for Emmy Awards twice, both for Baba Black Sheep and The Young and the Restless. And she also won an Angel Award in 1991 for Hollywood Structured. She's a French American actress, and she's been a television host, a director, a writer, and an acting teacher. Like, this lady's done it all. She was in Predator 2. She was in Catch Me If You Can, the Steven Spielberg movie. She's guest starred in X Files, Murder She Wrote, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Friends. Like, list goes on. So the fact that they could get someone of that caliber in a movie that, for one, was super low budget, and for two, wasn't expected in any way, shape, or form to move the needle when it came to horror cinema. Like, they knew what they were doing when they made this movie. They were hardly even paid anything to make the film to begin with. On the DVD commentary for Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2, the filmmakers say that they were paid a dismal amount of money to make the film, and originally they were told to just re edit the first film and pass it off as a sequel or a re release of Silent Night, Deadly Night. And director Lee Harry had said that he actually demanded that a brand new film be shot, but they didn't have the budget to create an entirely new story, which is where you get a lot of those flashback sequences in Silent Night, Deadly Night 2. If you've seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's a lot of archival footage from Silent Night, Deadly Night that's used in part 2. But for me, doesn't matter because what makes Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2 for me is Ricky Chapman. And that is why I actually like this sequel better than the first movie, to be 100% honest with you. Nothing against Billy, but Ricky Chapman is awesome. There's just no arguing that. And for that, it just made everything that's wrong about Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2 not matter. It just doesn't matter. I'm going into it knowing it's trash. I understand it's not the best. There are so many problems with the film from so many different avenues, but it's still amazing and remains one of my favorite holiday horror films. So, budget on the film was $250,000, which of course is not a lot of money, even when you think of the budgets that horror movies had at that time, right? This was at the pinnacle of slasherness. This was in 1987. So, this is the slasher craze is already there, it's established, kind of moving into the supernatural realm with slashers. Like, I think this was around the time no, not Dream Child, was the one before Dream Child, Dream Master. Think this was around the time Dream Master would have came out. So the horror genre was going more into the supernatural realm, and it showed at the box office too, unfortunately. It was released in the US April of 1987, and it only grossed $154,323. So it didn't even make back its budget at the box office, unfortunately. But despite that, it's still grown a massive cult following. Like, this is considered a cult classic in the horror community, and if you haven't seen it, it's definitely one of those I would add to your Christmas horror repertoire just to give it a watch if you've never seen it before. You may not like it, and that's okay. It's not for everybody, but I guarantee you that at the end of the day, you'll definitely get something from it. Whether it's a little bit of a chuckle or just, some entertaining kills and the way the story's laid out, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not selling this good, but it's an awesome movie. If you haven't seen it, definitely got to see it at least once. And if you don't want to watch it and you just want to find out what happens in it, that's okay because we're going to talk about the plot of the movie right now. And it starts by picking up on Christmas Eve 4 years after the first Silent Night, Deadly Night. And we meet Ricky Chapman. He's the 18-year-old brother of the first film's killer, Billy Chapman. He's being held in a mental hospital, and he's been committed there for life after a series of murders that he had committed. He's being interviewed at the same time by psychiatrist Dr. Henry Bloom, and Ricky starts telling the stories of the murders that his brother had committed through a series of flashbacks. And this is where they use footage from the original film to do those flashbacks, which it is smart. That was a smart story plot way for them to use that archival footage because they really had to at the end of the day. And I like it. I like that that's, the direction they took instead of just repackaging the film altogether. But the flashbacks at the same time also feature new shots to make Ricky appear in more of Billy's original story because he wasn't really there in the first Silent Night, Deadly Night. So they use new shots to incorporate Ricky into that story. After this, you see Ricky start to tell his own story about how after Billy's death, he was adopted by a Jewish family and he was given a good upbringing. But his trauma was unfortunately never treated. So his adoptive father dies, and Ricky then loses his composure and begins to commit a series of murders. He targets people who are quote unquote naughty. But then a chance for a normal life appears, and he starts dating Jennifer Statson. But unfortunately, he has an unpleasant encounter with Jennifer's ex boyfriend, Chip, and that just sends Ricky right over the edge. He kills Chip by electrocuting him with jumper cables that are attached to a car, and Jennifer watches on in horror. He then strangles Jennifer to death with the car antenna, and she screams how much she hates him and all this kind of stuff during her death. Now, while all of this is going down, a police officer is actually watching this, and he goes after Ricky to arrest him, but Ricky ends up grabbing the cop's revolver and shoots him in the head before going on a wide, rampant shooting spree. He kills at least 3 more people throughout the whole neighborhood, including one man who's taking out his garbage. Garbage day! Eventually, Ricky finds himself in a standoff with the police, and he tries to commit suicide but fails before eventually being arrested. We then come back to the present day, and Ricky strangles Dr. Bloom, the psychiatrist who's been treating him. He strangles him to death using audio tape and then escapes from the mental hospital. He ends up murdering a Salvation Army Santa and steals his costume and plans to kill Mother Superior, which is what Billy had failed to do 4 years earlier in the first Silent Night, Deadly Night. He ends up going to her house and chasing Mother Superior. Ricky then decapitates her with an axe and cleans up the blood and starts to stage the scene. Puts Mother Superior sitting in a chair, and then her severed head gets balanced on her body. Now, this is soon discovered by the police officers that arrive on scene, and they see a screaming Ricky leaping out and preparing to attack them, but he ends up getting shot down out the patio door. However, Ricky suddenly opens his eyes and starts to smile devilishly, indicating that he survived his gunshot wounds. The final shot of the movie shows the arm of the murderer dressed in a Santa suit, which was footage from the first film, and they're plunging a knife into the screen before it freezes and the credits roll. So that's Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2. Yes, I know there's not much to it, but there is still a lot to it if you've never seen it before. Definitely one I'd add to your Christmas horror repertoire. One of my favorites, and something that we play all the time on Cabin of Horrors, live on Kick, live on Twitch. If you ever want to just hang out with a bunch of horror junkies and watch horror movies randomly, come on over, kick.com/cabin of horrors. We also air them on twitch.tv/cabin of horrors. Different movies on both channels, so you can kind of get a variety and pick what you want to watch. But come on over, hang out, watch some horror movies with some horror junkies. It's always a good time, trust me. So moving on to another movie that gets played a hell of a lot at the cabin and is in our Hall of Fame, Anna and the Apocalypse. A great horror Christmas musical. If you've never seen it, another one I highly recommend. It came out in 2017. It's also a British film directed by John McPhail, who doesn't really have much else claim to fame, in my opinion, outside of Anna and the Apocalypse. But he was born in Glasgow, Scotland, and does have another movie coming out this year. I don't know if it already has, called Dear David. But really, this seems to be, I would say, the big thing that he's done. And the movie stars Ella Hunt, who's an English actress and singer. She was actually nominated for a Scottish BAFTA for her performance in Anna and the Apocalypse. And I would say this is probably her claim to fame as well. She has been doing more stuff after that. She starred in Summer Night, Cat in the Band, Master, Lady Shatterley's Lover, Horizon, and American Saga, but nothing horror or I would say necessarily massive. The idea of Anna and the Apocalypse first started to brew in 2009. Ryan McHenry actually came up with the idea for a zombie musical short film, which took some inspiration from High School Musical. So he wrote and directed it in Dumfries High School in 2010, along with friends Nason Alekeru as a producer and Ryan Clackery as a production designer. There was then a short film in 2011 titled Zombie Musical, which won Best Producer at the British Academy Scotland New Talent Awards and received two additional nominations, including Best Director and Best Original Music. In 2013, the project ended up being retitled to what we know it today as Anna and the Apocalypse. And unfortunately, in May of 2015, McHenry actually passed away from cancer, and Ale Carew and McDonald continued to develop the project in dedication to McHenry. 2016 is when John McPhail had taken over as director, with McDonald as the sole screenwriter of the film, but McHenry also received credit as co writer for Anna and the Apocalypse. At first, McPhail was concerned about joining as director before production began. He actually stated in an interview with Entertainment Weekly that they'd all been doing this together, and all of a sudden, here he comes in. And of course, right, he was nervous about it, but they welcomed him with open arms, and they really made everything nice and easy for him. And that must be scary, right? Like, especially having somebody leave a project in such a tragic way and then coming in to fill those shoes. There's a lot of pressure there, and there's a lot of stigma you feel like you have to get past, a lot of nervousness and anxiety. So I don't necessarily blame the guy in any way. John McPhail had a lot of inspirations when he was directing Anna and the Apocalypse. He's been stated as saying he was influenced by films such as West Side Story, Rocky Horror Picture Show, Breakfast Club, and even the musical episode from Buffy, Once More with Feeling. A lot of that inspiration helped John McPhail put Anna and the Apocalypse together and give us the final product that we ended up seeing. And it was eventually released, had its world premiere at the Fantastic Fest on September 22nd, 2017. And then it had a European premiere at the Sitges Film Festival in Catalonia, Spain on October 5th, 2017. It wasn't until January 10th, 2018 that it was picked up for North and Latin American release. Orion Pictures had picked it up for theatrical distribution, and then it was released in the United States just with a limited theatrical release on November 30th, 2018, with it expanding nationwide later in December on the 7th. I can't find anything on what the budget for Anna and the Apocalypse was. If anyone finds out and can let me know, that's awesome. But box office wise, they made $545,597 domestically. And then international box office, they came in at $301,930. So the worldwide box office was $847,527. And based on that amount, and the fact that I know it was an indie horror movie made by indie production companies, I feel like it made its budget back at the very least. There's no way that this was a $1 million or more budget movie. I would find that so hard to believe. If I were to guess, I would probably say the budget was around 500,000, maybe 750, maybe. But either way, if my numbers are right, they made back their budget, which is totally awesome because it's a great movie. It has a cult following, and if you haven't seen it, I highly suggest seeing it. It's a wonderful film. And we're going to dive into the plot of it right now, and I'll tell you everything that happens in the movie, just in case you don't want to watch it, or maybe you want to know what happens beforehand if you may or may not like it. So the film starts out in Little Haven, Scotland. We meet Anna Shepherd, who's just about to finish school and plans to travel for a year before going to university. And at the same time, her friends are dealing with their own issues. She has a best friend named John, who's an artist and is also secretly in love with her. There's Chris, who's a budding filmmaker and just struggling with a class assignment. Then there's also a transfer student named Steph, who's trying to get her social justice reporting past the tyrannical vice principal, Mr. Savage. There's also Nick, who is Anna's one night stand, who's making her life a little bit difficult. On the night of the school Christmas show, in which Chris's girlfriend Lisa's performing, Anna and John are working together in the local bowling alley, and Chris and Steph have gone to the homeless shelter to film for Steph's story. During this time, there's a zombie infection that just starts spreading wild. So we get to the next morning. Anna and John end up leaving for school, completely oblivious to the fact that there is a zombie apocalypse happening around them. They end up encountering a zombie who's dressed up as a snowman, and Anna decapitates him with a seesaw. They get to the school, and there's a group of adults, including Chris's grandmother, Mr. Savage, Tony, and Lisa, who are taking refuge inside. Tony and Mr. Savage get into an argument about whether or not to save the other survivors who are outside, or if they should lock the doors and stay inside the school and basically try to save themselves. Mr. Savage ends up winning the argument with a sudden military broadcast. Anna and John figure that it's going to be too dangerous to go home or to the school, so they go to the bowling alley where they end up meeting with Steph and Chris. They've taken shelter there and they're trying to protect themselves from zombies. Steph finds out that there's an army evacuation happening and it's coming to the school, so they all plan together to go there once it's safe to do so. They soon realize, though, that's going to be a lot harder than they think, because there's a group of zombified bowlers who are about to break in after Steph kills a zombified janitor. They get into a massive bloody fight and they try to fight through the zombies. They end up surviving. The next morning, we see Anna, Steph, John, and Chris. They wake up to find that the military army has been completely zombified and there's actually no evacuation coming. Despite this, they set off to go to school and see if their loved ones are still alive. They end up running into Nick, who's having an absolute blast killing these zombies. Like, this is a dude who loves the carnage. They end up getting together and he joins them on their way to the school. We then pan over to Anna and John. She tells them that despite this whole zombie apocalypse event that's happening, she still plans to go traveling. And she also notes to him that he's her best friend, which implies that she knows about his feelings but doesn't necessarily reciprocate those. The group ends up getting ambushed by zombies, which kill Nick's friends and bite John. He gets Anna to safety, but sacrifices himself to distract the zombies. The rest of the survivors end up reaching the school, where Savage ends up letting the zombies in as a last ditch measure of control. Anna and Nick then split off to search for Tony, while Steph and Chris look for his family and Steph's car keys. Nick and Anna get separated by a group of zombies. Chris finds Lisa, but his grandmother had already died of a heart attack. Steph, Chris, and Lisa find the car keys in Savage's office, but Chris and Lisa end up getting bitten while they try to escape. Anna ends up finding Savage in the auditorium, where he's using Tony as bait for the zombies. Anna then frees Tony from Savage, but the two of them fight. Savage falls to the zombies, and Tony ends up getting bitten in this whole scuffle. However, Nick arrives, and they prepare for one last stand before Steph rescues them in her car. Anna leaves Little Haven, and they go towards looking for a safe place. Credits roll. That's the end of the movie. It's the plot synopsis itself, I realize as I'm reading it, it doesn't even give it justice for how good of a movie this is. The soundtrack is absolutely phenomenal. It consists of 13 songs. It was released on November 23rd, 2018. And there's a deleted song called Which Side Are You On, which is featured only on the vinyl release and the director's cut. So if you're able to get the director's cut of this movie, that is the best version that you can get, because you're going to get all the songs, you're going to get all the story, and it's such a fun time. It's a great holiday Christmas movie. It's marketed in the movie poster Shaun of the Dead meets La La Land, and I totally agree with that. It's definitely got Shaun of the Dead vibes, but at the same time, it has the musical aspects of a mainstream musical movie. And the two of them mesh so well together. Like, John McPhail did a wonderful job of executing the vision and putting together not only just a zombie movie, but a musical zombie movie. Very well done, and I give huge kudos to them because it's a great film. So that wraps us up for our Christmas themed episode of the podcast. Thank you, everyone, so much who took the time to listen today. I hope you enjoyed hearing about Silent Night, Deadly Night Part 2 and Anna and the Apocalypse, both amazing Christmas horror films. If you want to come watch some more horror movies, I am live 24/7 on both Kick and Twitch, kick.com/cabin of horrors and twitch.tv/cabin of horrors. Different horror movies are always playing on both, so you can take your pick as to what you want to watch. So come on over, hang out, have a good time. I'm also on Facebook, facebook.com/cabin of horrors. Instagram, it's instagram.com/cabin of horrors podcast. I'd love for you to hang out, be a part of the horror community, and let's have a good time. And until next time, which will definitely not be until the new year, I'll see you in the shadows.